Now, I am an avid user of Letterboxd. Ew. I know, I don't sleep well at night knowing what kind of person I am. However, I came across this movie called House 1977. Now, I have seen this movie a lot, and it had been on my list, and I was like, I'm gonna watch this eventually. I made a movie bowl with some friends, and I put House in it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait. We never go around to it. So then I waited some more, and I was like, yeah, I'll like watch it eventually. It took me so long to finally get around to watching it, and oh my god, after reading like 3 reviews on it, I knew it was gonna be amazing. So I eventually sat down and watched it, and then I sat on the movie for like a day, and then I watched it a second time because it was really, really good. This movie is completely insane, and I love it for that. This movie is only an hour and 20 minutes long, so it's not even that long of a movie. I cannot emphasize how weird this movie is either. The more I read about this movie as well, the more I like it. So, if you didn't know, in the year 1975, a movie was released that is still well regarded as a masterpiece in this current day. This movie changed what could be done in movies, and suddenly everything was possible. This movie, I don't know if you've heard of it, was Steven Spielberg's Jaws.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
This movie's reach was breathtaking. It was unheard of. Eventually, this movie's influence reached all the way to Japan, where it was seen by a certain director, Nobuhiko Obayashi. Obayashi was approached by Toho Studio to develop a similar script, so he basically made Japanese Jaws. I lie. I'm lying to you. What he made cannot ever even be possibly compared to Jaws. This movie is so batshit insane, I don't know what they were. They asked him to make Jaws, and he went, nah, I'ma do my own thing, and made something else entirely. To find inspiration for his film, he discussed ideas with his daughter. He believed that children can come up with ideas that no one else could. A few of these ideas ended up in the final movie. Examples of these are a reflection in the mirror attacking the viewer, a watermelon being pulled out of a well appearing like a human head, and a house that eats girls. The latter seems to be the main idea that the entire film is based around. There are other smaller child fears that may have been used in the script. Probably the most interesting is the fear of getting her fingers caught in piano keys, which will make sense when I mention the most iconic scene in the movie. Obayashi also included themes of the atomic bombs. Obayashi himself was born in Hiroshima and lost his childhood friends in these bombings. He applied those themes in the movie in the form of a woman's ghost waiting for her lover's return from World War II. The woman's bitterness turns into an evil spirit that devours girls unaffected by the bombings. The movie was titled House, as Obayashi felt a foreign title for a Japanese film would be seen as taboo. Obayashi recalled that his producer told him Toho was tired of losing money on comprehensible films, and were ready to let Obayashi direct House, which they felt was completely incomprehensible. The special effects in House were purposely made to look unrealistic. He wanted them too to look like a child created them. Obayashi had previously worked on advertisements and had a lot of experience with special effects, which you can see, like, when they want to, they go crazy. For the late 70s, it's really, really impressive. He also found the acting of the girls to be poor until he decided to play the soundtrack on the set. I don't know how common it is for a soundtrack to be made before a movie is filmed. However, playing the soundtrack on set seemed to relax the actors, and then it began to work out better. When the film was released, it was a commercial hit in Japan, much to the surprise of Toho. Becoming super popular, especially with young people, it took years and years after this to move to America. But when it did, there were multiple sold out screenings of the movie, mainly held by like smaller theaters, more people that knew of the movie and wanted to see it than actual like proper screenings of it. The main themes of this movie is about love and loss, grief and overcoming it, with the main characters of this movie being Gorgeous, the stepmother, and the auntie. The stepmother fell in love with Gorgeous's father, Auntie lost her lover in World War II, and Gorgeous is the young girl yet to experience love and is in the crosshairs of her aunt. So I'm gonna break down some of the movie and discuss the themes within it, but not all of it, just a little bit, because it's not very long anyway. I mentioned it's only an hour and 20 minutes, like, go watch it. You'll be done before tea. That makes you sound British. You'll be done before dinner. Tea time, isn't it? I'll be done before tea time. That's Caitlin. Is that Caitlin? Yeah. I'll have this over before tea time. My bad. This movie has really good pacing and never really overstays its welcome, with the first scene mirroring the end. It opens with Gorgeous, the main character, wearing a wedding dress as Fantasy, another character, takes photos of her. The main characters are all named after their personalities and what they're good at, which is very strange, but who am I to judge, I guess. We then get to see a conversation between these two girls and one of their teachers. The teacher talks about how she's getting married, but it's an arranged marriage, so she doesn't really care all that much. She's kind of being forced into it. It has to happen. This immediately begins the discussion of the themes of the movie: house, love, marriage. Only two, there's a lot more. We then introduce the main cast of girls. We have Gorgeous in Fantasy, who you've met already. Then there are Prof, or Proof, like Professor, Prof, the smart girl. Kung Fu, who is like super active and does Kung Fu, crazy. Melody, who is very musically gifted. And Mac, who eats a lot and is called fat. Even though between us, she looks no different to any of the other characters. I'm so confused. They're so mean to her. These girls are supposed to be going for a trip with their teacher to a training camp over the summer break. However, it gets cancelled by the teacher due to his sister having a baby, meaning her inn is closed. Meanwhile, Gorgeous is supposed to go for a trip with her father, but he has just brought home a new partner and has also invited her to go along. Gorgeous, feeling like she's losing her dad, instead invites everyone to her auntie's house for the holiday, which they all agree to, kicking off the main story of the movie. Also, she mentions how she hasn't talked to her auntie in years, and she's she reaches out to her auntie and is like, "Hey, can me and a bunch of my friends just come hang out?" Like, you don't know this woman. You haven't met this woman in years. You just remember her and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna chill with a bunch of my friends. It's fine." I'm sure nothing can go wrong here. As we then get this, okay, how do I even explain this scene? We change to the next day, or the day of them leaving for this trip. As Mr. Togo, the teacher that is chaperoning them, we see this full set of this street. There's a shoemaker. It's weird. It's very weird. Then Mr. Togo gets ready to go. And he walks out and he almost steps on a cat. The cat is the auntie's cat, because we've seen this cat a few times. He trips over, lands in a bucket, falls down the stairs onto the street, rolls around in this bucket, avoids a car, and then goes back into the street. And then we cut to him with a bucket stuck on his ass, and he's not gonna make it because he has to go to the hospital to get this bucket off. I don't even... This scene, amazing, beautiful, spectacular. I don't know how to explain it. You just have to see it for yourself. I wonder if I can get away with playing it. We'll see. I might get copyright striked. Maybe, maybe not. So, when the girls get on the train is full of cowboys and stuff, because Obayashi wanted to make it oh, look at how Western this is. Look at the cowboys and all the people dressed up. It is very funny. Anyway, when they finally make it to the town, they meet this insane watermelon man who is just the most normal guy. I also have to mention, I love the effects in this movie. It was made to look extremely silly and camp, and it ends up being so incredibly cool. The movie is incredibly goofy, don't get me wrong, but in a way where it's endearing and you can't help but love it. This gets even better as the movie goes on. I haven't even mentioned the piano yet. So the girls reach the house, and the auntie greets them, They kind of hang out for a bit. It's fun, it's chill, you know, like it's been years since you've seen your auntie and now you just get to hang out. So as they explore the house and just kind of settle in, things immediately start to go wrong. First with the disappearance of Mac. She then appears when Fantasy goes to get the watermelon out of the well, and there is a severed head found instead. This scene is also great as we see a severed head flying around the screen, and it's very impressive, even if it's supposed to look kind of ass. But it's very funny, but it's very impressive. Of course, no one believes Fantasy because, you know, her whole thing is her name is Fantasy. She makes stuff up. And all the while, the aunt is like rolling an eyeball around in her mouth and messing with Fantasy because, of course, no one will believe her. Her name is Fantasy. She has to keep making stuff up. The aunt then starts to show how like supernatural she is very quickly, dancing around, going into a fridge and then like teleporting onto like the beams in the roof while also being super small, and then like dancing with a skeleton. It's obvious that she like gains life from the girls and she somehow consumed Mac, I'm pretty sure. Also, there's an amazing scene of the cat playing the piano. God, I fucking love this movie. It's so good. This movie really emphasizes a loss of possibility and future as well as innocence. The aunt lost everything in the Second World War when her husband passed away. She didn't deal with this in a healthy way, deciding instead to lock herself away in her mansion and steal the futures of young girls who happened to stray too close. She decided to never deal with her trauma and move on, so she lost her future and any chances she had to change and grow, growing stagnant in her mansion, or growing stagnant in her house. Gorgeous represents the next generation, a group of young people untouched by the horrors of war and how much potential is in them. Gorgeous's aunt suffers deeply from loneliness, and this is represented by the cat. She has the cat on her at all times and loves the cat, with it being seen as the source of her power. When Gorgeous gets home and sees her father with a new woman, the cat appears to her, showing us how lonely she feels in this moment, which is what pushes her to reach out to her aunt. Main cast is a group of extremely talented girls that all have extremely bright futures ahead of them, either as musicians or doctors or literally anything else. I don't know what Mac's potential is. It's not really explained. Maybe she eats good? Maybe professional hot dog eater? This potential is all snuffed out as they are taken one by the house and the aunt. Obayashi speaks about how he lost all his friends in Hiroshima. This could be the idea he's trying to present in this movie. A group of people that also had great potential snuffed out too early. We see like truly tragic death scenes between all the girls. One of them gets like trapped in like a doll or trapped by a doll. I can't really remember it right now. The worst one is Melody and the piano. That scene is truly awful. Kung Fu gets eaten by a light. That's kind of crazy, but then like she kind of survives. And in her like dying breaths, I say dying breath, in her dying legs, I want to say, she almost defeats the evil, but it's not enough. Gorgeous aunt and stepmother are probably the most interesting dynamic in the entire movie. Gorgeous has lost her mother and is still grappling with the death. When stepmother is introduced, she represents a new start, a new relationship for her father, and a chance to open up to another woman in her life. Gorgeous instead retreats into the past and heads off to her aunt's house. She is slowly changed until she basically becomes her aunt. She can never move on from the past and never face her trauma. This leaves her alone in the house, losing all her friends. We see her sitting in the mirror as like her skin falls away and cracks open. She changes, like the mirror changes her. She's in front of her aunt's mirror as she begins to like burn up, and eventually she leaves that room not looking like Gorgeous anymore. She's someone else. The movie ends with the stepmother arriving and they sit opposite each other, showing the past and the future. Those that never face their traumas and grow, those trapped alone in the past, and then that hope of a future. the chance that things can turn out for the best if you just give it a shot. For a movie that is surreal and incredibly silly, there is a deep tragedy at the center of it. A story about loss and trauma and deep loneliness. But don't get me wrong, this movie is incredibly goofy and silly, with a man being turned into a pile of bananas and a watermelon man becoming a skeleton. Yeah, so, Mr. Togo finally arrives, and you're like, oh my god, wait, he's gonna, like, save Fantasy, because, like, this is what she keeps dreaming about. And then he speaks to the Watermelon Man, and the Watermelon Man's like, you like watermelons, right? And he's like, nah, I like bananas. And then he kind of, like, tweaks out in his car, and the next time we see his car, it's full of bananas. So I think he became bananas? And there's a chance, I don't know, the Watermelon Man might be the skeleton inside the mansion, or he could just be another skeleton, or he could die. Maybe that's the scene of him dying. I don't know how he died there, though. He, like, turns into a skeleton. It's really quite freaky, actually. Anyway, this movie is truly something special. It's sad and tragic and has a deep melancholy hidden at the center of it all. However, this is an incredibly silly movie, with incredible special effects for a movie made in the 70s. Obayashi wanted to make the effects look goofy on purpose, yet they still look incredible for what he did. You will believe a girl is eaten by a piano. House is a truly special movie, and we really don't have anything like it out there. I mean, you've got, like, maybe Alice in Wonderland, but, like, also not at all that. Let me know if you know any movies similar to House, because they probably exist. I just don't know. It's pretty impressive that this movie even existed at all, and I'd honestly recommend it to anyone who has at least a slight interest in it. I watched it twice, and I was like, okay, I need to talk about it. First time I watched it, I gave it 3.5 stars. I went, that was pretty good. I watched it second time, I gave it 4 stars. It's crazy how that works. But hey, thank you for watching this little short-ish breakdown of House 1977, because I really like this movie. I don't know. That's kind of it. Go watch some classics or something. Go watch something from the 60s. Citizen Kane? That sounds old. That sounds like a classic, I think. Yeah, I think that's a classic.